So Amita, what do you do at Zinnov?
I work on global workforce planning for several companies where they're looking to leverage global talent to drive higher value and optimize costs while keeping quality of work high. So I work on the strategy and implementation with private equity and enterprise companies.
Great. And you work on global talent. You've been working with customers. So what's changing in the global talent landscape?
A long-run view is that talent is going to be critical and short, which means there will be higher demand versus supply of talent. And I do not think the world's STEM graduate flow is able to keep up with the pace of the demand of talent. However, in the last 10 years, things have gone to a crest and trough. For instance, in 21-22, there was a talent rush. So there was great resignation, high attrition, salaries going up by 20% globally average. Whereas because in after 22, there has been a consistent hike in interest rate. There is a lot of geopolitical turbulence going on, due to which capital investments have kind of gone down. There is actually mass layoffs, and the demand supply has reduced. The gap has reduced. Having said that, more industries are digitizing than ever before. And the salary costs in countries like US have gone up a lot. Average salary cost in US for software tech is 140, 150K per year.
Wow.
And if you add up like a loaded cost is 180 to 200K.
Okay.
This is starting to become cost prohibitive, due to which companies are pushed to find greener pastures for having affordable but high quality talent, pushing them to globalize more.
Is talent even a conversation in board meetings with your customers?
So what I would say is talent was a very frequent conversation during COVID times, because it was a very new pandemic everyone was facing. So the board was very concerned about employee well-being, business well-being. So it was a very frequent conversation. It is actually reduced in frequency. Having said that, the CTO and CIO are highly concerned about talent strategy, and they are taking this conversation to the boardroom very frequently.
Got it. So what are some of the common questions from the board? Is it about cost of talent, quality of talent? Like, what are they worried about?
So board is worried about a couple of things. One is, how will this impact business? How can they run global initiatives? Now, this degree of concerns that board has varies from the sector. Private equity sector versus enterprise sector, right? Private equity firms and the portcos are always looking for high speed, high value, whereas enterprise companies are looking for value, but while de-risking, right? So the speed at which they operate and the risk that they can take, actually that appetite varies. Having said that, board is looking for what is going to be the impact of doing this from a business point of view. Will they be better off doing it with an outsourcing partner versus having their internal teams? And these kind of questions come commonly in a conversation with the board.
You also mentioned that you work with private equity firms as well as with enterprise companies, right? And the stakeholders could be very different.
Yeah.
And if you look at private equity firm, they have this whole concept of operating partners.
Yeah.
What are some of the questions operating partners ask you around talent?
One of the common questions they ask is, what is the playbook for their companies to decide on when they should offshore, if at all? What value, what ROI will they get? How quickly will they get it? And what should be their model, right? When I say model, they're looking at, should they outsource, and when should they outsource versus when should they have full-time employee internal teams? These are very common questions. And when the ROI will be realized.
Are there some trends you see which is different for different industries you work with?
Yes. One of the common trends we have seen is industries such as retail, in the fintech, automotive, industrial are actually digitizing at a very fast pace.
Okay.
In fact, many of them have started thinking of AI initiatives, which is higher than other industries. Software was always thinking of that, but these are non-software tech, non-digital native companies. They are thinking of these strategies for longer because it's become a critical part of their business. So that is one common trend we have seen. The other things that vary from industry to industry is, again, the risk appetite. So if it is pharmaceutical or biotech or banking, security, IP, and data is very critical, right? So these are the other trends. With retail, they can play around with more with e-commerce, with other parts of their business. But here, IP data becomes very critical.
One of the other areas we talked about is AI, right? AI is important across industries.
Yeah.
Are companies looking for AI talent across global locations? And how do you help think about AI strategy for, from a global talent perspective?
In almost every conversation we've had with GCCs and leaders, CTOs and CIOs and CHROs, everyone has a plan to have an AI team in a global location. That is consistent.
Okay.
Now, because they do struggle to find good quality talent and at an affordable cost, so definitely is part of their strategy. Having said that, companies are still grappling with, should it be just augmenting what they have versus creating new solutions, right? That conversation is not very clear in the CXO group, and it needs more discussion, alignment to see, are we just augmenting the current business processes and making them more efficient versus can I create new AI solutions which is going to increase my top line?
Got
or
it.
both.
When you think about talent strategy, let's say you are advising a company to set up a AI center of excellence in India.
Yes.
What are some of the design elements they should you advise customers?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is the organizational readiness and change management.
Okay.
What do I mean by that? It's not just about bringing the change in the new location, but it's actually, I'm talking about the leadership's appetite and understanding of AI as a field.
Okay.
AI is a new field. So there is not a lot of talent which has decades of experience in AI.
Sure.
So even the leadership needs to build that muscle for AI before diving into an AI initiative. So that is what I'm talking about. The other thing is AI talent strategy. Understanding what should be the pyramid and what should be my strategy to hire.
Mm-hmm.
It's a talent in much higher demand than software talent. So having a regular strategy wherein you source interviews like you do for software talent may not be sufficient.
Interesting.
So I think thinking through how can I create an aspiration in AI talent to join a retail tech company or a fintech company. What is special about this, right? So I think AI talent, one is a pyramid. People tend to think I'll have to hire a bunch of data scientists, but actually the bigger chunk of the team is data engineers, data analysts, right?
Interesting.
So having that understanding of what roles comprise this talent, what are core and what are context within this team, that is important because there is going to be a software development part within the AI team, which is not as hard to hire as the core data engineer and machine learning engineer and data scientists are, right? So that is one understanding. And then what should be my strategy? Should I acqui-hire? Should I be doing upskilling programs? Should I be doing a thesis development program within academia so I can have my employees be trained by academia according to the curriculum I've co-devised with the academia and graduate the talent to be ready? So I think there are some strategies which you have to think to develop talent rather than just to expect to get talent from the market.
And you also advise these companies on location strategy, right? So they have to set up this AI COE and more global software tech talent pool across these locations. So what's your recommendation around location choices? Is it changing between a few years ago now? What changed?
So a couple of parameters to keep in mind. First of all, to pick the location, right? The parameters are, of course, relevant talent availability, relevant talent scalability, right? You may have a 1-year plan and a 5-year plan, and in some countries you have enough talent for your 1-year plan. But this is a global initiative with high investment, high energy that you'll invest. So you should be ready for a longer term plan in that location. So don't just look at short-term scalability, but long-term scalability in the country you pick. That is one, talent availability and scalability. Second is cost. Cost of talent and cost of setting it up. The third is, the geopolitical stability. There are so many companies in the last 10 years who, Ukraine has had great talent historically, but because of the, the challenges it's facing with the war situation, many companies have stepped out. right? Even the bordering countries are starting to get impacted. So geopolitical stability. The fourth is infrastructure and government support in making it easier for to do business. And of course, the last but not the least is language and time zone overlap. So when you look at all these parameters and you have certain problem statements you're trying to solve for, you have to see which location checks most boxes. So to give it with an example, if you're looking to build high scale teams, thousands of members, there are very few countries in the world which will, keep up with that requirement. Countries like India, maybe few countries in Latin region. And if you're not looking at high-end work, then maybe Philippines and Vietnam, right? There are very few countries. Now, if you're looking to be in a country where you have time zone overlap with your teams or customer facing, or say a regional requirement of Spanish as a requirement to develop your products, then maybe Latin countries have a better overlap with US, right? But if it is something related to fintech world or BFSI and needs to be in Europe market, maybe countries like Poland serve better purpose. But if you're looking for depth and breadth of talent, highly scalable, full product teams, then countries like India stand on top of this category of countries.
Interesting. So these are some of the areas they look at, right? What are some of the differences in a company want to set up something in India, or they already have experience building in India?
Yeah.
They want to build something in Mexico.
Yes.
How do you think about the strategy differently?
It's very interesting you ask that, because a lot of companies have already started asking us to have a de-risking India plus one strategy or a country plus another country strategy, because they don't want to put all eggs in one basket, number one. The reasons they're asking is sometimes to have a near shore apart from an offshore team in India is one, to have a better overlap, anything which is customer facing or language requirements, or of course de-risking the business. What should they be thinking of differently is, one is the size of the talent pool is different.
Sure.
The depth and breadth, maturity of the two countries is different, right? India was in this journey for more than 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. Mexico is getting there. Now, the good thing is countries like Mexico, the government ecosystem is supporting all of this investments and global capability center or captives or nearshores as we call them. So it's going in a positive trajectory, but it does not have exactly the same depth and breadth. That is one thing. The second thing is labor laws, right? On one hand, in India, there is notice period could be higher than countries like Mexico, which have 2 to 3 weeks notice period. Having said that, the labor laws are more employee friendly in a country like Mexico versus a country like India, which employers need to keep in mind when they're devising their HR policies, employee wellness programs, and employee strategies. So that is another thing to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind, at junior level, both countries provide high cost arbitrage to companies. But as you keep going higher in seniority, that cost arbitrage dramatically reduces in both countries and reduces at a higher pace in Mexico. So some of these things you have to keep in mind.
Tell me, like, a few times when the customer calls you, hey, Amita, I need help. Yeah. When do they call you?
They call me to understand the nitty-gritties of these locations. Okay. Because there is so much information available on internet that it can be actually very confusing, and you don't make right decisions by knowing generic information. You need to make decisions and budgets and financial planning and talent planning based on nuances. So for example, they'll ask me questions like, hey, could you tell me if as a software product company, I have to hire top talent in a country like Mexico, what should I be thinking of, right? How long will it take me to build the team? What would it on an average cost me? What are the things I should not be doing? Mistakes you've seen other companies make, which I should avoid, pitfalls I should avoid. That question is almost like common for any country, not India, Mexico, Central Europe, Eastern Europe, right?
Got it.
Then what they'll ask me is, can you tell me based on functions? Yeah. For example, it's not just tech and R&D that companies are looking, right? They're looking at finance shared service, HR shared service. So how should I have my global workforce strategy for each function?
Sure.
The other question they'll ask me, can you tell me what are the advantages or disadvantages companies have faced if they have moved teams in-house from outsourcing to internal?
Okay.
And how should they think about what part they should keep with outsourcing versus what part they should keep in-house?
Okay.
These are the common questions I get.
As they move from the decision making, right? They decided, okay, I want to set up operations, and they understood. You're giving them all the advice on what they need to do. Are there other areas they come to you as well, or are they just the initial decisions?
They definitely need a lot of help because not every company has a eyes and ears on ground in every country, right?
Sure.
So understanding local talent knowledge or talent nuances is very, very important for success of these companies.
Sure.
So they definitely come to understand, as I set this up, what are the top critical success factors?
Okay.
What are the decisions I need to make? How much time do you expect from global management?
Sure.
How frequently do you expect an interaction with the local team of the global management?
Sure.
Could I talk to a company in my sector who has done this before with your help?
Got it.
Right? Do you have experts on ground to make sure that financially I'm compliant, HR-wise I'm compliant,
Okay.
and have a strategy to retain talent that hire in this new location? So these are very common questions they come up with. And bigger the company is, they are more concerned about change management ongoing.
Okay.
Because it's not just, like I said in the beginning, not just about the new employees, but the morale of the existing employees.
Okay.
And the CEOs and the CTOs worry a lot about that. So how to manage this change globally, internally?
Sure.
And how does a customer or a partner perceive this change that's happening with you?
Yeah.
That ongoing strategy also is something that they, seek our guidance.
Got it.
Yeah.